So I come from a relatively large family. I have 5 brothers, but I'm also a product of a divorce. We've moved around a lot. I was a very, very shy child and grew up, got married uh, after college, and had 2 lovely kids, a gal and a boy, and went to grad school I got a master's in social work and worked for a long time in social services and different mental health facilities. And my latest venture was with the Baldwin County Children's Advocacy Center, working with children who are sexually and physically abused. So I've always worked in the social services and love it. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. So I think I started introducing myself as a social worker because, as a shy social worker to boot, because I gave birth to a very outgoing, wild daughter who was always so outgoing that sometimes it was difficult for us because I was very shy and didn't want all the attention on us, and she reveled in the attention. But as she got older, she had a lot of friends, and she was in, I guess, what you would call the popular crowd. And about the middle of 8th grade, she started to get into trouble. She got caught smoking pot, and all of her friends blamed her. When that happened, she got ostracized from her friend group and went into high school and started having more troubles, and got into a crowd that were good kids but didn't have a lot of supervision. And she started experimenting with all kinds of drugs and got out of control. And it was a long process. It happened kind of over 3 years, something like that, where she was kind of having some depression issues and really struggling. And so we found a therapist to see her, and things would kind of get better and then kind of get worse. And she was very protective over her friends, but I had a really hard time feeling comfortable with her hanging out with some of her friends. So it became very divisive for us. And as a social worker, I really struggled with, why can't I help my own daughter? It continued to get worse and worse. She became very violent. She was sneaking out every day of the week. But, what is there to do in Fairhope on a Monday? But she found it. So my husband and I got to the point where we were looking for outside help. We started researching different facilities. We were talking with her therapist about what we could do in these times where she snuck out. We were looking into the crisis center and getting her put somewhere just short term, just to kind of try and see if we could not scare her, but just shake her into some kind of reasonable behavior. And nothing really was working. We felt like we were getting doors slammed in our faces for a long time. And we finally found well, let me back up for just a second, because we were researching all these facilities, and I would call and they would say, is she a truant? No. Is she failing out of school? No. Has she been in trouble with the law? No. She had been with people who got in trouble with the law, but never caught herself, so that she would somehow persuade the police to call us, and so we would go get her. And then we had an experience where we ended up calling the police because she was being very violent. And she was supposed to go to the crisis center. That was our plan with the therapist. And they refused to take her at the crisis center because she was threatening to hurt herself. We did not believe they were viable threats, but just because she said it, they wouldn't accept her there. So that was just kind of another door that closed. She was becoming increasingly violent at this point. And again, she has a younger brother, so we were dealing with him experiencing all of this and watching all of this and his stress on top of our stress. And so we started researching these facilities. She wasn't fat enough to go to the places that would accept insurance. And we didn't have the resources to send her anywhere else. So luckily, my parents did. And we were yes, we were able to send her to a teen challenge program. It was a 15-month program, but it was terrible. I mean, we tried up until the very last minute. So we had all the paperwork submitted, and we were all ready to go. And my husband and I got cold feet. We obviously did not want our daughter to be out of our house. It was certainly very difficult. But then she came home one night and I asked for her phone because she had snuck out, and she threw it at me so hard that it broke my nose. And then a couple days later, she was wanting to go to a friend's birthday party. And I said, of course, what can we get her? Let's get her a gift card. And Sita said she wanted to give her cash. And I said, absolutely not. I'm willing to get whatever gift card you want. I'll go get her a $100 Visa gift card if you want, but I am not giving her cash. And Sita flipped out so badly that I could only imagine that she was that addicted to whatever drug that she was on. So I got in the car, and my husband, it just happened that she had therapy that day. My husband took her to therapy, and I met them at the therapist's office. And I arrived first, so I spoke with the therapist about our plans to go ahead and send her to this teen challenge. Luckily, there was still a space, and we kind of had already had everything set up, so we were able to go ahead and get her into this program. And luckily, we had my parents who were willing to help us to the tune of about $75,000 for 15 months. Wow. Oh goodness, it was horrifying. We had to trick her. So I let her go to that birthday party. I did not give her the cash, but I let her go to that birthday party, which was an overnight birthday party in Florida at a condo. And I told her that the next day we needed to pick her up, and that I wanted to go to lunch and figure out where we were and what was going on. Well, we picked her up and got on the interstate and told her that she was going to a teen challenge facility. And it was a 5-hour drive of extreme discomfort.
I'm sure.
She was, we had put on the child locks and locked the windows, and she was kicking my seat and punching my seat and kicking the windows, and basically just was out of control. And then we got to the hotel. We still call it the intake hotel to this day. She talked on the phone all night long with her friends, and you can imagine her friends were not very pleased with me. So there was a lot of difficult conversation. And then we we got to the facility, and she handed over her phone and went in, and we had to we met with her new counselor and the admission staff, and they walked us to the car, and she looked at me and said, I don't want to be here, but if this is where you think I need to be, then I'll do it. And she took her stuff and she walked across the parking lot. And I mean, to this day, I can see it as clearly as if it were happening right now. Like, she turned around and looked at me, and then she was gone. And the way the program was structured, I didn't get to see her for 4 months. And then we only got to talk on the phone every other week for 20 minutes. And it basically kind of strips them down. They're not allowed to have any cool clothes or any devices, and so the only solace that I had at this point was that at least she was safe. I mean, mm-hmm. she was somewhere that had constant supervision, and she didn't have a phone, so she couldn't get out. She was safe. So that was,
you weren't scared she was gonna die,
right?
Right. Of whatever horrible things she had gotten herself into.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And not knowing what she was into was one of the hardest things. It was almost like if she came home and said, "Oh, Mom, I've been fill in the blank," I would at least know. But mm-hmm. I had in my head, I mean, just all kinds of crazy. At that time, I was working at the advocacy center and thinking maybe she was being trafficked, and there were just all kinds of things running through my head. So at least she was safe.
Right.
So she got up there, and that was the most difficult experience I've ever been through. I am so proud to say she's doing wonderfully. She is finished with her first semester of her senior year in high school. She does an online program that she has continued since leaving the program. She's moved back home, and she's working 2 jobs and is incredibly grateful for her family and incredibly grateful for most things. I mean, it's been a complete turnaround. And most importantly, we have a great relationship that it's honest, and I've had to ask her not to do some things, and she's been able to tell me or ask to do some things that she thought maybe I would say no to. So when she first moved home, it was interesting because we both went into that a certain way, and she would start spiraling as if it was like who we were before. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm making sense with that, but anyhow, she's doing great. She really is. I'm very, very proud of her. It's been a long road, and she worked very hard and took the program very seriously, and has done a great job. I mean, I think that humanity has beautiful resilience. I think we all are capable of carrying more than we think we can. And I believe in the power of empathy and honesty. And as I said in the beginning, I was a child of a divorce, so it was very, very difficult for me to trust people, and I had to trust this place with my daughter, and I had to trust that my daughter had enough love shown to her that she would want the experience, and I had to trust that our whole family would be changed and grow, and ultimately I had to trust in telling my story so that I could let go of that. I don't know how to explain it, but to let go of that shame was incredibly important, and it helped me learn a lot about that stigma and what that does to people.
Well, it becomes dehumanizing, I think. You identify the child, especially to being a child who's so unformed in their every single way, physically, emotionally, all of those things, to take away their humanity when they haven't even had a chance to sort of pull themselves out of it or figure it out is really unfair to the child and to you and to your family and to a community, because that's the most human thing you can do, is to be vulnerable and to say this is happening and be honest and have other people say, how can I help you? How can I support you?
Correct.
You know, I think that to me is one of the most important messages, not to feel that shame and not to be afraid to talk about it and to destigmatize. I rode a bus trip with a lady who was chaperoning a trip that I was on, and her son had been in and out of prison with drug addictions, and he was independent and he was past 18. So it was a little harder for her to be involved in getting him care. But she said, she talked about it. I didn't even know her. And she's like, you know, some people think it's funny that I talk about it, but I'm not ashamed or embarrassed. This is my life. I didn't teach him to do those things, but I'm trying to help him get out of those things. And I thought, that is one of the healthiest things I have ever heard someone say. And I thought, I wonder how many people relate to her. And it's, to me, she was free of that mom guilt. She's like, I know I didn't teach them this. I think that's one thing too. We all feel responsible sometimes for the things our children do, and clearly they all have free will, because you wouldn't have said, hey, why don't you go try this,
Right.
So if we all can accept that our kids have free will and don't always use it as they should, that kind of makes it more of a human experience as well, don't you think?
Well, that's the interesting part about the shame that I was experiencing. Like, again, I wasn't ashamed of sitta, and I wasn't the one saying, oh yeah, go try these drugs, it's going to be fun, right? So it literally was just this perception that society has. It was the stigma that created the shame, not my daughter's drug addiction, not the experience that we went through, but the judgment, the perceived judgment around it. And it is there, and
it's powerful,
we definitely need to break it down, because it is very powerful, and I don't need to take responsibility for her actions. But that stigma, that it's kind of like, whose fault is it then? It creates a blame game that isn't real. I mean,
it's not healthy. It's not healthy to go into finger pointing. It's better to go into solution thinking, which is what you did.
Again, working at the Advocacy Center during that time, living daily in stories of sex abuse and physical abuse, and it was definitely a struggle. But I mean, the beauty that came out of it in the form of resilience and empathy, and obviously my daughter, really, I'm so impressed by her willingness to be vulnerable and open herself to that experience.
That says a lot about her. It says a ton about her, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
So it has certainly taught us a tremendous amount, and one of the most important takeaways to me is that we really have a flawed system. I was fortunate. My parents had disposable income. Otherwise, I was having doors slammed in my face over and over and over again. So if I don't have the wealth of my parents in that situation, my daughter doesn't get help. She becomes a truant, and she gets involved with the law and possibly goes to juvenile detention, and then when she ages out, possibly to jail, and doesn't get the help that she needs. And I'm very, as a social worker, very unimpressed with the resources that are out there for people. I think about single parents, I think about low-income families, I think about even middle-class families like myself that don't have their parents around. I mean, what do these people do? They just watch their children go down a trail that they can't do anything about. And I would like to, as we continue through our process, that I would like that to be an important part of my life moving forward. I can see myself when William graduates, he's in 7th grade, so I have some time to plan it, but I would love to open some kind of group home or something that could provide the quality care that Civic got, but at a cost that people could actually afford.
Sense,
So all of these programs, every program that we found was incredibly expensive, or if they took insurance, then it had to be in trouble with the law or already not past the point of no return, because I do believe in resilience.
Well, I think this story is so important to talk about because there is a lot of stigma, especially when it's your child. You want to protect them. You don't want other people to judge them. You know who she is on the inside, despite all of her mistakes. As a parent, you want to protect them from that judgment and that stigma. But on the other hand, that was very isolating for you, wasn't it? As a family, did you feel isolated and alone going through that?
Yeah, I think when we keep secrets, it's an awful lot of energy. And never mind, like you said, by keeping the secret, either because you didn't want to expose her, or you were yourself frustrated or embarrassed or humiliated, whatever the reason for keeping that secret, not only does it create additional pressure, but as you pointed out, it doesn't allow us to get the support that we need. She needed support and she had professional help through it, but you too needed someone to come alongside that says, I understand, I've been through it, you're not alone. How can I love you? How can I encourage you? How can I be there with you?